What you want, stranger? I don't have time for chit-chat. And I am honored to meet one so thick as to think this pond is a marsh. And the politeness continues. Perhaps I am speaking with a noble. My apologies, my lord. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, traveler. I meant no offense. There are simply so many bandits here in Skyrim, and such few persons of character. As for my name, my clan once knew me as Anumla, but fighting folk call me the Swamp Knight. Well, it's a short story. I carry a sword. I'm from the swamps of Black Marsh. Do you need me to continue, or can you piece it together from here? You're a clever one. Saw right through my glib response. All right, I'll tell you, but it's a long story, so you might want to sit down for this one. I was hatched in a small tribal village, lost in the swamps between Thorn and Hellstrom. In other words, in the middle of nowhere. As the hatchling of a small and pitiful clan, I couldn't afford to travel to the city and train under the guidance of the tribal guard. You speak of the rootworm. Not a preferred method of travel, on account of speed. Smugglers prefer the secrecy, however. Nothing we were involved with in our little neck of the swamp. As opposed to going backwards? I haven't thought about it, but your company makes me long for the old days. In truth, I only came to Skyrim to rid myself of that urchin. Now that I'm here, maybe I'll adventure for a bit. Or maybe I'll forge a new legend, right here in this adorable little puddle the Nords call a marsh. There were visitors. In fact, every few years, a recruiter from the city would come to the village and conscript those in the clan who showed promise. Only a handful of hatchlings were chosen. All of them were males. Males I bested in combat 100 times over. I figured the only way I'd be a soldier was to train on my own. So, one night, I went out into the deepest swamps with nothing but a hist branch. I committed myself to killing a feather serpent. On the second night, I thought I'd vanquish 3. By the first hour, my only goal was to survive. Somehow, I managed. I labored through the bog and hid inside a hollowed-out tree. I waited and watched for predators. And as I watched, I learned. I saw how the serpent camouflaged itself in the foliage, how the Leviathan waded effortlessly through the swamp, simply by refusing all effort. I saw how on bright days the lizard used the Hackwing's own shadow to scuttle around unseen, and how on dark days all creatures clung to the mist. By the time I was grown, I could slay 5 feathered serpents with a single slash and do it with my eyes closed. True enough, the name came when I joined a company of fighters, many of whom were celebrated warriors from all over Tamriel. There were members who served as honor guards for tribal chieftains, and those who trained under guild masters and various regiments of the Empire. There were even retired assassins from the renowned shadow scales of legend, but none knew of who I was, or why I was recruited to join the company. The truth was, I was never supposed to be there. I had found the invitation on a courier while traveling west toward Gideon. Undaunted, I told them the story of how I trained to become a knight. I used that exact word. In truth, I'd only heard the word knight in passing. But when travelers from strange lands used the term, their words spoke with a tone heavy with reverence. That's how I wanted them to speak about me. Naturally, the company laughed uproariously at my expense. They dubbed me the Swamp Knight, and I've been that ever since. Oh, they did, but Dalum A assured them I was on the up and up. He was our leader, and the one who assembled the crew. I never asked him why. Maybe he was just curious. Maybe he ascribed it to fate. Maybe he thought he could make a wife out of me. That poor fool never had a chance. That's an old story. Back when the Hrothgar monks had milk in their beards from sucking their mother's teats. Okay, maybe not that old, but old. I was traveling in Black Marsh with a company of fighters. We fashioned ourselves the Honorable 8. We were an elite band of fighters, hired to do jobs common sellswords weren't equipped for. At first, I thought the honorable part was a joke. Our company was made up of liars, drunkards, and lying drunkards. But they were all loyal. And they were all honorable. They were good beasts, mare and men. It wasn't, but Dalum A founded the company to be good and do good, to wash all the grime that stuck in his scales during the war. As such, he'd only agreed to work that didn't diminish what we stood for. But contracts have a way of leaving out the details. We were, and we did. The job was simple. Clear out a cave of necromancers that were terrorizing one of the clans that resided near the border. The clan said a hatchling had gone missing, and rumors were abound of corpses stolen for experiments, and live bodies turned into corpses. When we got there, the shadow scale Ulaway scouted ahead as the rest of us waited near the entrance. He found bear traps and tripwires. The occupants were further in, he said, black-robed mages, chanting. The whole thing stunk like a Thalmor's wet diaper. Traps or no, bandits usually post sentries in and outside the cave. The Nord, Ardwolf, though, he got tired of all the standing around. Black robes and ominous words. Good enough for him. Dalum A gave a nod. Couldn't chance it. Some poor hatchling could have been on a table, about to become some sick bastard's war puppet. Sadly, no. The child was on the table, like Ulaway said, but she was already dead. The people around her were mourners. Black robes. They were refugees from Cyrodiil, Altmer, Khajiit, and Argonian, driven from Leaween. To the clans, they might as well have been wraiths. I don't know who struck first. It didn't matter. We killed them all. Well, all except one. It was an Imperial boy, hiding in a small crevice in the rock. I didn't know who he was, or if he was even with the refugees. The boy was a mute. Part of me thought it would be better to slay him, but another part of me saw the hatchling in the swamp, just trying to survive till morning. The company disbanded. Honor brought us together, and dishonor drove us apart. Me and the healer, Elia, went north. The boy, he followed. We split up in Bravo. Don't know why he chose me. Seems to me he was better off with a Breton. But as I kept going north, he never left my side. I don't think Elia would have wanted him around either. Males grow squeamish at the mere talk of children, let alone the sight of one. I kept going north, figuring at some point the boy would stop following me. Gotta give it to the little runt. He had courage. Eventually, I realized I could have walked right into the sea of ghosts, and the little Histcarp would have dove right in. I was halfway through the marsh when I decided to head back to Morthal. I turned to the pesky urchin and told him, "All right, you win." Imagine my surprise when I found myself talking to a patch of death bells. There was no one there. Some may ask why I'm a knight without honor. Others contend I wear the mourner's clothes to honor the brave warriors I slay. Those in my company will tell you I wear it to mourn the refugees who died that day, and all the innocents who die in the pangs of war. I will tell you that there's only one thing in this world I truly mourn. My sanity. Ha 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 ha! Yes, there was Arnulf, the former member of the Fighters Guild in Cyrodiil, a big Nord man with an even bigger laugh. In contrast, Ulaway never said a word. He was a retired shadow scale, and the only noise he made was when he sharpened his daggers. Moontail was a conjurer who conjured monsters as quickly as he conjured lies. And Elia, a Breton healer whose lust for man had no cure. Then there was the Bosmer Indril, lazy girl that one. When we made camp, she slept in the trees, but always with one eye open. There was a red guard named Bodon, a man whose gift of strings and tongue once earned him a place beside an Argonian tribal chief. And lastly, our leader, Dalum A, a legendary swordsman who fought in the Great War. So, you both enjoy the company of men?
Ulaway never spoke much,
But when he did, people listened.
even Arnwolf trusted him, and I've never known a Nord to heed the advice of a lizard.
He strode through the swamps like a cold breeze, and I realized how clumsy I was in comparison. That is, until a week after we boarded a ship for elsewhere. The Khajiit Lord had heard of our feats and commissioned us for a job in Yorval. Ulaway was our scout, and by tradition, he always went first. But when he placed his feet on that desert sand, he started to wobble, and his tail lashed recklessly. I couldn't believe my eyes. He was struggling for balance. I've seen drunken jesters with more grace. The poor fool came to the desert and thought he didn't need any boots. We used to ask Moontail which clan he was from, and every day it was a different clan. Twice he swore that we were hatched from the same mother. How dare you forget your own sibling, he'd say. Dalum A never told us who the conjurer was, but according to him, Moontail had already told us countless times. There were truths in every lie, parts of different stories that told the same tale, and if you pieced it all together, you would know. True, there were even retired as the truth. But when, naturally, the company laughed uproariously at my expense. They dubbed me Agreed. And while I had some anxiety joining such an esteemed company, I quickly discovered that I indeed belonged. Ha ha ha! You sure you two haven't been sniffing death bowels? What could you possibly have to gain from slaying a giant, besides a cracked skull and a handful of toes? Right, traveler. There's toes, cheese, and a pile of swords from... Ha ha ha! But why not? You've caught me on a good day. All right, I'll help you slay this giant. Ready to get moving? Chasing this scroll makes me feel like a knight again. You have ancient evils, legendary weapons, and heroes to claim them. It's an exciting time to be alive, isn't it? Although I never expected the weapon to be a shout. I guess it's a Nord thing. Maybe, if you're a dragon. Ha 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 ha! Now, if this shout were called Lizard Rend, then I might have reason to worry. But all right, traveler. I'll do my best. If the Greybeards say it, it's one thing. But I trust you to know the difference between peace and indifference. Ha ha! So that's what all the commotion is about. And here I thought the Nords... Although I suppose you vanquishing Alduin... But in all seriousness, it must have been an epic battle. I wish I could have been there and fought by your side. Great accomplishments always are. That was the first thing I learned when I joined the Honorable Eight. I was an aggressive little scaleback, always charging on ahead, trying to prove myself to the others. But it wasn't until I woke up a blacksmith in the middle of the night and demanded my blade that Dalum A pushed me aside. We were on the tail of a kidnapper and didn't have much time. But I was acting like a hatchling, and he let me know it. I should have appreciated the smith's sacrifice. I was the one who asked him to sharpen my sword, and now I was scaring his little ones. I was so ungrateful, even though if it weren't for blacksmiths like him, I'd still be swinging a hissed branch. Well, brave traveler, I have to admit I miss the swamp. Bodon used to say at the end of a battle, a warrior's first thoughts are always of home. But to be honest, when I think of home, I don't think of the rivers of tar or the clouds of flesh flies. I think of faces and names. I think of friends. Seem to me a lot of those faces have more skin than scales. Jana and Ingarte at the inn, Agni and Thalion, even old Lurbuk still making sure no one in Morthal gets a good night's sleep. Most of all, I think of you, Dragonborn. It was an honor to watch you fight, and a pleasure to have your company. Thank you. Name it, and
Wait,
it
so
shall
you're the
be done.
Argonian who braves the
What do you
rock?
need?
I was expecting someone burlier.
Anything else? Ha ha! Don't worry, Elf. I'm stronger than I look, and I tend to draw attention. This giant will definitely kill you last.
That's comforting to know. Okay, we have our bard and our giant slayer. All that's left to do now is find our giant. Apparently, a lot of hunters like to frequent this cave, and there's even a small lake toward the rear, but no one ever drinks from it. Probably because it tastes like century-old giant broth. So they say. Problem is, half the hunters who go into that cave end up dead, and the other half see nothing at all. Of course, the dead ones are proof enough. Also, the footprints those bodies are lying in. I'm hoping bringing the others will help us avoid that scenario, or at least give us ample time to run away.
So are we heading out? Or do you need me to pick up an instrument too?
I don't see how it could hurt. Maybe I should sing as well.
I think it's best if I play alone.
Fair enough.
Actually, I forgot to mention one other part. The song will put him to sleep, but he won't stay that way. Not unless we add a little something extra to his blood, like, say, via a sword coated in sleeping tree sap.
And by we, I take it, you mean me.
Well, I would do it myself, but I use bound weapons, and I'm not 100% sure it would work. And before you ask, don't worry, I'm not a total idiot. The first thing I did was secure a bottle from one of the local traders. Just don't ask from who. Although, if you want a hint, it rhymes with Ebola.
Fine with me. Magic spells I don't really get, but sticking a sword in someone's belly makes sense to me.
Okay, then let's go. If that's okay with you, being the leader and everything.
We're heading out. The scales are itching for a fight. It's that or a bad case of rust chancre. Ha 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 ha.
enormous.
And here, I thought I wasn't gonna have any fun. Where should I stick this giant?
Well, hold on. Fiona has to coax her to sleep first. I know when I get out of bed, the first thing I want to do is hop back in.
Alright. Wish me luck.
I hate to be the one to ask,
But it's hard to tell. Maybe I ought to get a closer look.
I'll be crazy, but I think the music is making him angrier.
Nonsense! Why would... Oh, God.